Are Bible stories just Bible stories? Are Bible stories here just to tell us about the things that God has done in the past? Or are Bible stories here to prepare us for some God-inspired interruption of our very ordinary and well-planned lives? Are Bible stories here as a God-inspired challenge to our orderly and predictable lives that we have chosen to fashion for ourselves? Are Bible stories here to remind us to enter into God's presence on high alert with fear and with trembling? Given the story we just heard this morning about Zechariah, do you really think it is safe for us to be here this morning in this sanctuary? Given what happened to Zechariah, should we be just a tad anxious about closing our eyes and our prayers? Who knows who might appear to us? Maybe Gabriel? Should we be reluctant this morning to be still and know that He is God? For God may say something that astounds us, threatens us, and ushers our lives out of our very control. It was a day like any other day. Herod was king of Judea. Crazy old Herod was king. The paranoid old king, refusing any rivals. That bloodthirsty old king, that paranoid, bloodthirsty old king staring into the dregs of death, ruling with fear and intimidation and unwanted violence. But as the world turned, it was an ordinary old day for Zechariah. Zechariah is an ordinary old priest, except he is graying at the temples. He is married to a woman named Elizabeth. Both are descendants of a priestly order. Both know what it means to handle the holy things of God. And they, day by day, are living right before God, trusting God's ways, obeying God's teachings. But they had no children. Elizabeth is barren. They are getting on in years. Is this more than an introduction? Is this a clue? Is this a clue that God is about to make an old story new again? Are we to remember Abraham and Sarah, wandering about, trusting God, no children, Sarah is barren. They are so old, they have given up all hope of ever having a child. Is this a clue? Zechariah and Elizabeth are barren. Are we to remember Abraham and Sarah? Are we to remember Hannah at Shiloh, praying, weeping? Eli, the old priest, thinks she is drunk. She barely wants a child, for she is barren, she is scorned, she is mocked, she is tormented by her husband's other wife. There's a promise to be made, a boy. That boy's name is to be named Samuel, and Samuel, she promises to return to the Lord, to His temple. Should we be on guard this morning? Could something happen here in this sanctuary? Something happened that until this moment you and I are totally unaware of. It was a simple time. It was an ordinary time. Zechariah and Elizabeth were simple, ordinary people. Zechariah was just going about his responsibilities according to the law. Nothing really spectacular about what he was to do. Be there, tend the sacrifices of the people. But now, by mere chance, by the casting of lots, this graying old priest will enter into the sanctuary to offer the incense at the altar while everyone is praying. Unusual, perhaps, given a number of times a priest came to serve in the temple. A chance, perhaps, but probably a good chance that at some time across his long life he would be chosen for this task. Unusual, but not at all beyond possibility. Kind of like you may think it's unusual, but not beyond possibility that you might be asked to pray in this church, or to come forward and receive the offering, or to present the greetings on Sunday, or to preach. But suddenly, in the sanctuary, at the altar of incense, everything changes. There is an encounter, a vision perhaps. An encounter, a vision, what difference does it make? A messenger of the Lord stands before Zechariah, stands before him in the temple by the altar of incense. The old man is terrified. Who wouldn't be? Who came here this morning expecting to see an angel in this place or any other place? He is overwhelmed by fear. What else could there be? An angel has disturbed his morning. Whatever he had expected when he entered the sanctuary that morning, Zechariah certainly had not expected to come face to face with a messenger of God. He had not come prepared to deal with God's intrusive intervention into his life. He was there doing his job, doing the ordinary, just getting on with the next things. Just like us, I guess. Did we really come here this morning expecting anything out of the ordinary to happen among us, the people of God called Immanuel? I suspect not. We came this morning to pray a few prayers, to sing a few hymns, to listen to a few words, to wait for the benediction, and then go home. Rarely anything else crossed our mind, just like old Zechariah going into the temple that day to offer the incense on the altar. Has it entered our mind that some divine encounter could await us here while we're trying to stay awake long enough to get to the benediction? Or has it become like us, as it was with Zechariah? We really expect nothing of significance to happen here this morning. We anticipate that we'll go home just like we were when we arrived this morning. Nothing's going to happen here that is going to significantly alter the plans of our lives, the directions that we go, the things that we invest ourselves in. We've been here too many times, and absolutely nothing has changed of any great consequence for us. Should we be anxious this morning about our wishful prayers, the wishful prayers we have prayed? This messenger of God seems to know that Zechariah has prayed for a son. Or perhaps he's prayed for more than a son. Perhaps Zechariah has prayed for God to raise up someone, some passionate young leader who will turn the hearts of men and women away from themselves and back to their God. Whatever his prayer, whatever his hope might have been, something is about to happen here for Zechariah and Elizabeth and a child. The story, it's the same old story. It has Sarah and Hannah written all over it. Elizabeth, she's barren, she is getting older. A child is to be born. They will not name him Zechariah Jr. He will not share the family name or any expected name associated with any of the priests in the history of Israel. No, he will have a rather simple name, a name that surprises everyone. His name will be John. And this child will never be only Elizabeth and Zechariah's boy alone. For see, the messenger says, his birth will bring joy and gladness to many. Even strangers who know nothing of Zechariah, nothing of Elizabeth, nothing of Israel will rejoice in the news that this child has been born. He is a child of promise even at his birth. Even before he takes his first breath, he is filled with the very Spirit of the Lord. How joyful and yet how unsettling this has to be for us. How many of us can say, all we ever wanted was a child. All we ever wanted was a son or daughter to call our own. All we ever wanted was a child to hold in our arms, to embrace, to bless, to raise. All we ever wanted was a child. But how many of us ever realized that the child did not belong to us? That the child was never intended to be only for our love and for our indulgence. The child always, always belongs to God. Zechariah will never be able to treat John like an ordinary boy. He must never taste strong drink. Wine must never pass his lips, for the Holy Spirit will fill him. Zechariah can have no dreams for this child. Dreams like we have for our children, that they become doctors and lawyers and Indian chiefs, that they make money and become successful and do great things and set the world on fire. Those are not the dreams that Zechariah can have for his boy, and maybe we shouldn't have those dreams for our boys and girls either. No, God has set this child's life before he is born. How unfair this is, we may say, to give Zechariah a boy in his own age when his wife Elizabeth has been barren so many years, but give him this boy with so many strings attached. Yes, that's our real difficulty, isn't it? We have a tendency to believe that God is here at our disposal. God is supposed to do our business and our bidding. God is supposed to make us happy and give us peaceful lives. God is supposed to bless us. How indifferent, how truly indifferent we have become to God's true intention with His world. God chooses to save, to heal, to redeem, to restore, to set free. God intends to come after His children who have turned their own way, who've gotten themselves lost in a land of deep darkness where there is no light shining, in the deep, deep valley of death. We think, mistakenly, that our happiness, our peace, our joy is all that God should concern Himself about. But God has much more in mind. Saving, redeeming, restoring, healing, blessing, giving life. God has plans for John, Zechariah, and Elizabeth's boy. He will turn many, but not all of the people to the Lord. Notice, He will turn some, but not all. God's calling, God's destiny, God's interruption does not entail success. Possessed by the very power of the old prophet Elijah, God will be with John, Zechariah, and Elizabeth's boy, to turn hearts of parents to children. Now, I wonder this morning why we think this is so important, why God would think this is so important, that at that time when old King Herod is crazy as a loon, that John should come to turn the hearts of parents to their children. If there's anything we have robbed children of today, it is their childhood. We refuse to let them play, to let them grow, to let them discover. We are intent upon them fulfilling our dreams, doing what we want them to do, being success as we define it for them. We need to turn our hearts to our children. We need to give them back their childhood. We need to give them their lives. We have stolen far too much from them, and God Almighty knows it and knows it well. Our dreams, truthfully, are too small for our children. They are destined for larger, greater purposes in this time and place than we are able to dream for them. But aren't we reluctant? Aren't we so terribly reluctant to offer our children to God? Where will He take them? What will He do with them? What kind of challenges will He lead them to face? Into what kind of vocations will He call them? How rich or how poor will they be? How educated or poorly educated they will be if we turn them over to Him? What kinds of suffering and hardship will they face if we give our children to God? That's what's so difficult. Over the years, time and time again, from people of good faith, deep faith, I've heard these words yet unspoken. I am grateful unto God that God asked your mother and dad for you, but may God never ask for my own son or daughter. It's a lonely, lonely place. Lonely, lonely place. But it is often our reluctance, is it not, to offer our children unto God. Somehow we believe our dreams are better than God's dreams, and our way for our children will bring our children more peace and joy than God's way. If this ordinary Sunday suddenly became a divine intrusion, wouldn't we, like Zechariah, foolishly want some kind of proof that we had actually seen a messenger of God, that we'd actually heard something besides our own voices, that the messenger of God that stood before us was real, that we were not daydreaming, that something really happened here, not just something in our imaginations. After all, we are getting older and older, and nothing like this has ever happened to us here. Truly, we never expected anything like this to happen to us here. We never imagined that God would truly meet us here, that God would grab us, pull us, kicking and streaming into a future, into a plan that He has orchestrated, never asking us if we even desire to play this new tune, this new song He sings in the world. We come here, do we not, simply to bide our time. We wait to go home at the benediction. We wait to go home at the benediction to maybe decide to come again on some other ordinary Sunday when we don't anticipate anything at all happening, except to come and go as we came, never changed, always the same, never seized by the divine, just living quite ordinary lives and missing all that God would do in our world. We ask for proof, and the messenger of God is offended. He speaks directly to Zechariah from God's own presence. Now, that is indeed intimidating. That is intimidating. Could it be possible that there's a voice speaking here this morning? The voice is not intended for all of us. The voice is intended for only one set of ears, only one heart, only one mind, only one soul, and that life is about to be changed and transformed by this divine interruption of God, this intrusion. Could it be that just like this message was for Zechariah, there is a message for only one of us this morning? God is trying to deliver to us good news, but like Zechariah, we are afraid, overwhelmed with fear, asleep, engrossed in the lives that we've chosen to live. We can't even imagine that there's another way to live our lives. So, Zechariah stumbles from the sanctuary, unable to speak. Somehow the people are convinced that he has been seized by a vision in the sanctuary, but Zechariah cannot tell anyone what he has seen or heard or experienced. That seems to be the way it is when God grabs us and takes hold of us. There are no words to explain what has happened. No words to describe what we have seen. No way to tell others why suddenly our heart and our souls and our lives no longer belong to us. We will now go a new way, a way that we're not even sure of yet, but is the only way we know to go. So Zechariah stays in the temple. He finishes his duties. Just like us, he waits for the benediction and then he goes home. But at home, something awaits him. Something more than that vision, that encounter in the sanctuary. Something more than that presence. Something more than that divine encounter. Gabriel is right. Elizabeth conceives. Her belly grows. A child stirs in her womb. A baby is coming. But there is no joy. There is no joy. Gabriel had said there would have been joy. But Elizabeth is ashamed and embarrassed. In her opinion, God has acted in a rude and untimely manner. There's a time for bearing children. Children are intended for the young, not for the old. And he's my boy, and I don't even get to name him whatever I choose. I have to give him this name, John. What kind of God is this, who shames me for most of my lives and then gives me a child that cannot be my own? And I suspect this morning that we share much of Elizabeth's heart. Why is God such a lousy planner? Why does God have to do the things the way he does them? Why can't he leave people alone even in his sanctuary? Well, maybe he can't leave us alone. Because after all, this is his sanctuary. This is his universe. And we belong to him. Do you feel safe here this morning? I don't believe we should. Have you dared to close your eyes in prayer? I don't know that I would take that risk. This looks like ordinary time. This looks just like an ordinary day. But God may be here. A messenger for God may intrude here. Your ears may be the voice that this messenger is speaking to. Your life may be about to be changed drastically and forever. This may not be an ordinary day. It has happened before. It may happen again. God may come and make himself known in his sanctuary. That is, unless you believe these are only Bible stories. Only Bible stories. Nothing to be feared. No reason to pay attention to them. They're only Bible stories. They're only Bible stories, or they're a warning to be on high alert, to come into the sanctuary in fear and trembling, for God may meet us here. He did when crazy old Herod was king.